Look, the federal election is over. Some people are saying it's over for Canada because Pierre didn't win. A little bit dramatic. Some people are saying the election was rigged, which, by the way, is quite hilarious. Pierre actually won a historic share of the popular vote. It wasn't rigged, okay? It was not rigged. You guys gotta chill. You guys gotta chill. Here's what's interesting to me, though. No one on the liberal side is saying this will be the golden age of Canada. And I wonder why. You must not be that excited about the next 4 years. In fact, it would seem liberals are more excited by all the memes that they're making about Poilievre losing his riding. To be fair, that was actually quite funny. I literally couldn't write a story that wild if I tried. I couldn't have written that. Bruce Fanjoy just made the year of liberals all over this beautiful country. I know I'm confusing you. In 1 minute, you've heard me shit on both the liberals and the conservatives. That's deliberate. I try and be neutral on this channel. Anyways, before we pack up this election, here are 5 lessons we learned watching Pierre Poilievre somehow lose the weirdest election I have ever seen. At number 1, Quebec rewards Francois Blanchette for shitting on Canada. Now, I'm going to be upfront with you. I wanted the Bloc Québécois to get wiped out in this election. I'm petty like that. I am very petty, and I just couldn't stand Francois Blanchette shitting on Canada last week, right before the election.
We are, either we like it or not, part of an artificial country with very little meaning called Canada. Many people in Canada write to me and say, we'd like to have the same as Quebec has.
What the fuck?
As long as we're part of it and we get elected in this parliament, we are entitled to any right and privilege and opportunity being provided by the persons who vote. And I will relinquish none of them. And if it's just a foreign parliament because this nation is not mine. I don't feel more at ease in the Canadian parliament than Mrs. Smith would feel at ease in the Assemblée Nationale du Québec.
Yes, he called Canada an artificial country with very little meaning. You want to know why that pissed me off? I don't think you get to receive like half the equalization payments paid out by the federal government in this country and say you're a foreign MP. In fact, I'll borrow something a wise man once said. If you want to keep getting subsidies, you should become a state. I know you've never heard Trump called a wise man before, but there, I said it. Look, you've got to read the room. You've got to read the room. Trump is shitting on our country right now. He's calling us the 51st state. Thankfully, he no longer calls our prime minister governor. Like, we'll see how long that lasts, by the way. But it's really not the time to be shitting on your own country. I feel like I've said shit like 5 times in this first point. It's really not the time to be shitting on your own country. So I badly wanted the Bloc Québécois to be punished for that statement. Instead, they only lost like 10 seats. They went from 32 seats in parliament to 22. It wasn't enough for me. It was not enough. Look, they clearly have a strong core. Their base is very strong. But I can't shake this feeling that Quebec rewarded the Bloc. And it annoys me. It pisses me off. and maybe that's why Alberta is considering a referendum right now. Like, they want to get that Quebec sort of love, that unconditional love, from the federal government. Anyways, here's number 2. Carney is a politician. I know, it seems like an obvious statement to make. Of course he's a politician. He's the fucking prime minister. Well, here's the thing. During the campaign, Carney sold this idea that he wasn't a real politician. This was quickly used to explain some of his gaffes. Oh, he said something in French and said something different in English. It's because he's not a politician. He omitted the fact that Trump referred to Canada as the 51st state on their first call. It's because he's not a politician. Of course, we know the real reason he didn't reveal that fact was because it was not politically expedient. Another example, he gets caught telling selective truths about the timeline of Brookfield headquarters moving to New York. It's because he's not a politician. Look, it was an effective grift. They were working an angle, and it worked. It worked. But this idea that Carney is not a politician, let's just lay that bullshit to rest right now. In some respects, Carney is probably one of the dirtiest politicians that I've ever seen. Don't worry. I'll give you examples. I'm not just throwing things out there. Some of you might remember the button incident. So apparently some liberal campaign staff planted phony buttons at a conservative campaign event. One of those buttons said, "Stop this steal." Those staffers were caught, and that's why we know about this. It was reported by CTV and CBC. Do you know what Carney did when he was informed of this incident? He reassigned those staffers. He didn't fire them. He did not fire them. They stayed on the campaign. Here's another example for you, and this one is a conspiracy theory on my part. Did anyone else notice the suspicious timing of the details that Trump called Canada the 51st state on that first call he had with Carney? Did you notice the suspicious timing of that coming out last week? You could argue in the days leading up to the election, Pierre Poilievre was actually coming in with decent momentum. He was gaining in the polls. We were not talking about Trump as much, right? And that was favoring Pierre Poilievre. Suddenly, the details of that call somehow reached Radio Canada and the CBC, and Trump is suddenly all over the news again in the lead up to the election. And that carries the Liberals through the election. This is a conspiracy theory. I have no proof of this, but I think the Liberal team probably leaked this information to the CBC. The timing was just too convenient. It was too convenient. It was too advantageous for the Liberals. Last point. I don't think you guys realize how hilarious it is that Poilievre had 91 people running in his riding. I know this was a group protesting for electoral reform, but still, 91 people? 91 people? The sheer girth of the ballot. I'll borrow David Cochran's description there. It was a good one. The sheer girth of that ballot. Anyways, I'll bring it back to my point. I think Carney is probably one of the dirtiest politicians I've seen. But it's a game, and I'm not mad at it. It is a game. You don't hate the player, you hate the game. But you've got to acknowledge the game that Carney plays. He plays the political game at a very high level. Now, I don't want to hear this nonsense about Carney not being a politician anymore. In fact, the willingness for his team to get their hands dirty on his behalf is actually my next point. At number 3, Liberals have the winning machine. I'll tell you this from the start. I don't hate the player. I hate the game. I've said that earlier. The Liberals clearly know how to win, and it showed in this election. The Liberals spotted early that Carney was not the man to win a culture war election. Justin Trudeau could win a culture war election, but not Carney. Carney is not the winning culture war election type of guy. So they simply found a different distraction. Now, I shouldn't say they found anything. Trump literally landed in their lap. He was a gift from the heavens to the Liberals. It didn't help that Poilievre did not know what to do with himself on the Trump issue. Poilievre could not pivot, and that was what cost him in this election. You know a conservative who would have brought this home easily? Doug Ford. He literally wrote the playbook for winning a Trump election. Now, I don't know if it was stubbornness or maybe it was just a belief in his message or maybe it was bad advice. Poilievre really did not deviate from his message. They should have brought this home. Instead, Poilievre will have to move homes apparently because I don't know how long he will remain opposition leader. It is wild that while he was trying to win the federal election, the Liberals were orchestrating a coup in his own riding. Poilievre got outmaneuvered with a stellar ground game. He got worked. Like, I play a little bit of chess. Let me give you guys a chess analogy. It's almost like Pierre was chasing a checkmate while he left his flank open. He got absolutely worked by Bruce Fanjoy, and the rest is history. Here's number 4. Poilievre wasn't Mr. Right Now. Now, I'm sure there are people that will say Poilievre is Mr. Not Ever, but he called attention to important problems in this country. A lot of people view Poilievre's support as cookie conspiracy theories who are angry all the time. And sure, there's a bit of that in the base. But the vast majority of people in the conservative movement are people who are frustrated with the direction of this country. He got a lot of support from young men, for example. A lot of these men have valid reasons to be concerned about the cost of living and the chance to earn their way to a bright future. Poilievre gave voice to that. The Canadian promise, as he likes to put it. And he wasn't wrong. More and more, the Canadian promise is being broken to young people like me. If things continue like this, the next generation is absolutely fucked. They are so fucked. In my mind, I think I'm struggling to put down a down payment for a house right now. Just you wait, Gen Z. Just you wait. You don't know what's coming for you. Here's another thing Poilievre wasn't wrong about. We need to stand on our own 2 feet for a change. This country needs to get productive. We've stagnated economically for far too long. We're just not growing. We're not growing. So while we didn't all agree Poilievre was the right person to lead us forward, he spoke the truth. Here's number 5. Canadians want change. Think about this. Justin Trudeau is gone. Jagmeet Singh, gone. Pierre Poilievre, also gone. At least till they parachute him into another riding. That would be very fucked, by the way. I don't know if I can get behind the idea of Pierre Poilievre leading the Conservatives while being unelected. It makes a mockery of our democracy. It's interesting that Pierre inspired change in his own writing. I've nicked that one from BB, who is a fan of the channel. Thanks for the assist, BB. But the point remains, Canadians want change. And it is telling that from the last parliament, the three protagonists have now lost their seats. Justin Trudeau, Pierre Poilievre, who was the crooner of change, and Jagmeet Singh. Look, I've said all this, but there's one more thing I've got to say. I've got to say, congratulations to Prime Minister Carney. I hope with all my heart that you succeed. I really hope you succeed. I'm not a conservative, despite the many moments of me calling you out in this video. I'm not married to the idea of political ideology at all. I'm married to a wife that will probably inflict bodily harm upon me if I don't stop talking about being married to anybody that isn't her. Mrs. Wolf is very possessive. Anyways, those were 5 lessons we learned watching Pierre Poilievre fumble the 2025 federal election somehow. I'll just say, it will be a big fumble if you don't subscribe after watching this video. Why don't you do me a solid, subscribe and join the conversation in the comment section. Don't worry, I know the election is done, but I've got lots of content coming your way. So subscribe and stay tuned. I'll see you guys next time.